everybody, Steven here, and for today's video I'm going to talk about my experience with the Onnit Academy's Foundation Certification. I just got done with that this weekend. Didn't really know what to expect with it. Obviously I knew just based off the name that it's a foundation for their other certifications, so I was going to a cert with kind of an open mind. And I always know that I'm going to learn something, right, from any certification. I might take one or two things away. So this was a 2-day course. They're both about 8-hour days. The second day we went a little bit longer. And with that, you're covering kind of the warm-up initially, and then you're going into these very specific movements. So how they do their squat, how they do their row, how they do their push-ups, right? So we're talking about these basic movements that we're doing just as humans. So push, pull, squat, hinge, looking at those, and then later moving more into the tools. So you work with the battle ropes, you work with the steel clubs and the steel maces. So if you're new to the industry, I mean, I'm definitely going to recommend this and how they teach it and how structured it is, going through each thing, working on that. You're spending about, I don't know, anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes with kind of the structure of the exercise, and then you're taking that and you're applying it from anywhere to 20 to 40 minutes, and then you're moving to the next thing. Some obviously you're spending a little bit more time with because it becomes that foundation for that next movement, and they spend a lot of time working on really that the squat and the hinge, the high hinge, which later kind of turns into a deadlift, and really good information. They have really good cues with all of those things that stick into your head. So there's our Superman Instagram, was it Spread That Ham or something like that. So it ends up sticking with you in terms of their terminology and all of this, because it becomes very practical. Because if anybody else is a trainer, you're not going to use an insanely high amount of technical terms with your client. I do to a degree so that I can ease them into it, but I don't just sit there and talk about the very scientific-y type words the whole time. They'll be lost. They don't know what you're talking about. So that was really good information. My favorite part, honestly, was the steel mace and the steel club, and that's what I went to the certification for. That's what I was more curious about, because I haven't worked with those really. I do have a steel mace at the house that I've had for a couple months that I've been working with. I'll order a steel club, so I can start playing around with that too. And they have those steel mace and steel club certification, which is one that I might consider down the way here in the next year or so. I think that'd be more beneficial for me, in my opinion. And those were really cool, really fun to work with. Looking at each movement and breaking it down and then stacking it was really interesting to do. So those were, like I said, the most beneficial for me personally. Knowing what I know now on the other end of all this stuff, I will say that if you are, I've been doing this 10 years, over 10 years now. If you are a highly knowledgeable trainer, although you will learn a little bit with this, you might consider, I know durability, they said, is something that goes more in depth. And then everything else kind of branches off from durability, just because their squat pattern was different. Kind of all the other movements I knew, and it layers into all the other stuff that I already know. I mean, I'm MoveNat certified, I'm a medical exercise professional, DNS, dynamic neuromuscular stabilization. I've done those workshops and have certificates for those. Restorative exercise, I've done countless workshops with that. Going to the grip approach this summer. So really in-depth stuff, working with a ton of other people like Rafe Kelly with Evolve Move Play. Dustin Ripito with Strong First, dealing with the kettlebells. Training with a client who's now turned into an RKC instructor and learning the RKC stuff. So taking all of that knowledge and going here, for me personally, it was just too slow. We're going over things I already know. Now I'm picking out little things here and there, but spending 8 hours on it, for me personally, was too slow. If you aren't there though, then that's going to be super beneficial for you. Everybody else that I've noticed, because this was a group of about 45 people, which they said was a smaller group, usually at 55 to 60. With that, there was a lot of people that they had only been training a couple years. A lot of the stuff that I ended up bringing up they had no idea about, which I think a lot of the stuff that I'm more into now is more on the forefront of what's going on in the industry, and just people aren't quite there yet, and that's fine. And this was a great process for them, right? You had, I'm forgetting the guy's name, but you had a team leader with the RKC, the Russian Kettlebell Certification. When we went to kettlebells, because you do learn some movements with the kettlebell and how they do their swing, I know for the RKC guy, gentleman, and then my client, now colleague, who's RKC certified, like these movements were different and they could get a little bit out of it, but you're talking about a high level kettlebell instructor. He certifies people in kettlebells, and he would have been an asset to them because his knowledge base is so vast. And like they talked to him, the Shane, the instructor, super open to everything and asking questions. I got to talk about going barefoot or wearing minimal shoes and what that does, and talking about Katie Bowman's restorative exercise and what we do in MoveNat. That's what I did love about this too. They are super inclusive and not exclusive, which is what you usually see. And they really harped on that, and I think they almost did it almost kind of overboard to an extent where they really want to push home, like, hey, we're not here to judge anybody that does another system. What we're here to say really is, it's not our way or no way. It's, you can include our way and you can include other ways. And I really did like that about the certification, and Shane, the instructor, and everybody else that was involved. And you had ended up being like some high level other, like Mace guy, Leo, who was phenomenal. He showed us some flow stuff that he did, which was really, really cool. So they are very, very inclusive of everybody in all these other systems. So that was really, really cool to see, because a lot of times I've gone to certs and they're like, we know you can do that there, but apply that there, not here. So you have to go into this space with an open mind, because, for instance, like their squat is a knee forward squat. It's not a hinge based squat, right? The knees go forward and then you descend, so it's a vertical squat. We're trying to stay upright with that. That was interesting. Some of the other layers that we look at is like their breathing cues are a little bit different, and I'm thinking more on the DNS side of, all right, build intra-abdominal pressure, look at the pelvic floor, look at cervical spine being, so more in depth. I kind of cover spots here and there, but with that being said, I was trying to layer on a lot more and explore it a little bit more. So cool stuff to look at. Like I said, if you are a high level trainer or athlete or something like that, and you have done a ton of other certs, you might look more on the durability side or something like that. Not to say that you can't get something out of this, but my concern would be you might find it's a little bit too slow for you, because they are really laying a foundation for not only their other certs, but for the trainer themselves. Or there are a lot of people there that weren't trainers, right? So they're really just learning, like, okay, how do we do these movement patterns? Well, if you've been doing that for a long time, that becomes that thing where you're like, okay, I want a faster pace. Let's get into the really, really in-depth stuff and then analyze this. And that's hard to do when there's 45 to 60 people in a room to break that down, just because you're going to spend way too much time on that. So I would recommend this for anybody that is not a trainer, that wants to get a good foundation for movements that they want to do, and do a little bit of unconventional training with the steel mace and the clubs and all that, and some of the kettlebell stuff. And then if you are a trainer and you've only been doing this a handful of years, this would be a good cert, because then you can branch off into other things with that. If you want super in-depth stuff, or you want to kind of pick your specialty, that's where we're going to look at, okay, well, I want to do MoveNat or Ito Portal's system, or I want to do dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, or the grip approach, or FRC, functional range conditioning. I mean, there's so many other, primal movement, ground force movement, there's so many different other certifications, Russian kettlebell, right, strong first, that you could do, where you can kind of hone in on that. But this does lay that good foundation where you can branch off to those other things. So I am curious, and I'll definitely look into over the next couple years, taking maybe their Steel Club and Mace certification, and looking more at that, because that was really what I was wanting to get out of this, is just finding that next tool. And that's what they really harped on. Now that you have the foundation, you can take these things and apply them to these other tools, because the tool doesn't matter, really. What matters is that you understand how your body is moving and these foundational principles that you apply to that. So that's kind of my overview with all of this. I will say they have an amazing community, amazing group of instructors. I never felt like when I would bring something up, they would totally be like, that is valid. Like, we do it a little bit different, but that's valid. Like, ours is valid. And there is a open communication with that, rather than like, that's wrong. Like, and I've been to some of those where they go, no, that's wrong. You can't do that. Like, well, that becomes debatable, because context is king with all of that. So that can change it a little bit. So recommend it. If you don't even want to do that, just go down to Austin and check out their gym. Their facility is really, really cool. And got to see some really great movers. I think it's Primal Swole Mover. I think I've seen him on Instagram, and then he was there. He did part of the warm-up one day with us, which was awesome. And then I got to see him kind of move around, which was just the level of what they call flow with that was interesting to see, which I know flow from parkour, which now the parkour community is kind of shying away from that because it's almost an overused word, but to see it with a tool was really, really awesome. Where it almost becomes almost like interpretive dance versus just strict movement, right? And that was interesting to watch. And that's where I'm going to almost kind of explore more of that. They give you a lot to think about. You actually get an account through their website where you can go back and they show you all the movements. So it's not just here you go and then you're done. There's no test. You're not trying to teach other people or anything like that, like what I've done with other certifications. It really much just is, here's the information, now go work on it, and when you come back, we can expand from there if you do. So definitely recommend it. Like I said, just knowing those differences. If you're a high-level trainer, maybe we do durability or something else. Just if you want to just kind of dive into what they do have to offer. My concern being maybe it might feel a little bit too slow for you. That would be the main concern. But if you're new to training, or you're just wanting to get into fitness yourself, check out the Onnit Academy. I'll make sure I link for their websites so that you can check out some of their stuff, and their YouTube page and Facebook and all that other stuff. And definitely looking forward to down the road, like I said, potentially going to another certification down in Austin, Texas. So if you guys like the video, hit the like button for me. If you want to continue to follow along with all of my content, hit the subscribe button for me. If you have any questions or comments too on this video, let me know. If you're another certified instructor, or if you have questions about what I went through with the process of that, please let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching.